So, well, we thought a lot about this, what we wanted to talk about, and we decided to just what we're working on the most right now, which is trust, and trusting that we're being taken care of, that there's a beautiful plan for our lives, and sometimes we want to see immediate results, but they sometimes it takes a long time to see that, and just to trust that each of us are really being cared for and 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 just protected. So we have a few stories, and these are about that. So some of this protection and love comes through other people. Sometimes it comes through like an angelic presence that comes to you in the form of what appears to be a human being. And Barry has an amazing story about that. And sometimes the help comes through through our intuition. Sometimes we actually hear a guidance, and sometimes we are being called upon to be that help for other people. And again, you have that story about that. So he has really good stories.
You have the best stories, though, Joyce.
So,
I could listen to Joyce all day long.
but you won't. Not here. Yeah. So we're both actually East Coast people. I grew up in Buffalo. Barry grew up in New York City, Brooklyn, and so I was born into a very loving family. My mother and father, they really wanted me, and the thing with my family, my father especially, was he was very goal oriented, and he wanted me to do well in school, and that was of the prime importance. You do well in school, and I could do that. My brother was excelled at that, but I also just like what this woman was, the sweet woman that was up here with the bottle. I had really big feelings, and it seemed like the glitter thing was going on all the time, and my dad was really concerned that, and and it wasn't only just big feelings. It was sensitivity, feeling things that no one else in the family was feeling. And so my father would, I know it was out of his love, he would say, you've got to overcome that. You can't be like that. You're not going to be able to make it in the world. He even said, you're probably not going to be able to be married because no one will be able to stand it. All those big feelings that you have.
There's people in the room who are relating right now.
I don't know. Does anyone really relate, Cynthia? Um, so I did well in school. I did what my dad wanted me to do, and he wanted me to be a math teacher. And I could have done that, but what a shame. I had such a different kind of work. Um, but I felt handicapped as much as if someone was deaf or blind. I felt like these feelings, which were so real and so big, and this sensitivity to just about everything was wrong, and that I was very handicapped, and that I needed. I just didn't know how to live in this world. And I remember at age, and so another thing with feelings, it's tears. You always had to go to your room. You couldn't have those around other people. And I was sent to my room. I just really was desperate at 9 years old. And it was my first, and then I had my first spiritual experience. And it was, I really feel that God spoke to me. And it wasn't like this loud, booming voice. I didn't see anything. I didn't see any colors. It was just my room. But it was such a clear message. And the message was, growing up right now, there's a boy, and he will know how to hold these feelings. He will know how to accept these feelings, and you're safe. And then the message was, you will recognize him. He will be a doctor, or on his way to being a doctor. He'll be tall with dark hair. Isn't that something? And it just, my whole being relaxed, because I knew that somewhere, this person was who would be able to accept this part of me. So meanwhile, so Barry and I are exactly the same age, just a few days apart. And meanwhile, in wherever you lived, New York. Oh, you like it better too.
It's hard with a fixed mic to really, like, be with people here. Wow. I mean, I think that story is it's kind of mind-blowing. That, I mean, it would have been enough just for Joyce to get that one message that there's a boy growing up somewhere who's going to be able to hold her. But then to describe the boy, so I had a lot to live up to, right? But I knew this story. We met when we were 18, okay? And I knew this story, and I remember I went to my mother and I asked, do you remember, Mom, when I decided to be a doctor? And she said, it just came out of the blue when you were 9 years old. I like to think it was the same moment that Joyce was having this experience. I mean, just amazing. But anyway, I always knew that I was going to be a doctor from 9 years old. And I don't know how, but I also, how do I say this delicately? I wasn't a very good student. I didn't apply myself. I was a bit of a juvenile delinquent even. I could have actually gotten into big trouble for some of the things I did. But I'm not going to tell you about that. What I'm going to tell you is I didn't do well in high school. So when it came to applying for colleges, I applied to all these pre-medical programs because I knew I was going to be a doctor, and got rejected by every single one. So there I was in my last year of high school, no place to go to college, but I knew I was going to be a doctor. But you have to go to college to be a doctor. So you heard how God spoke to Joyce. It was very quiet and inward, and I don't know if you've noticed, but we're a little bit different personality-wise, okay? For me, the voice of God had to be much louder, much louder. And it was walking in the corridors of the high school between classes with everybody out there, and I was like really feeling down because I didn't have a college to go to. And the loudspeaker crackled on, Barry Vissell, report to the principal's office immediately. And I thought, busted. I'm going to jail. I didn't get to college, now I'm going to jail, okay? I got to the principal's office, the principal was smiling. Whew. And he introduced me to this older man who was maybe 30, right? And I remember this as if it's just yesterday. This was 18 years old. He was tall, he was thin. I remember he had a thin tie. And he shook my hand, and there was this little room, and he said, hi, Barry, I'm representing Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York. Has anybody heard of Hartwick College in Oneonta? I never heard of it. And he spent like a few minutes, told me about Hartwick, and then he said, if you'd like to join us next fall, and he pulled a pen out of his pocket, you can sign there. And I looked on the table, and there was an application to Hartwick, all filled out with my personal information, and high school transcripts, as bad as they were there. And I remember I was holding this pen thinking, wow, this is big. I said to the guy, this is a big decision. Could I please have some time? And he said, absolutely, take a minute. And I was holding the pen, and I felt, obviously, I'm here for a reason. You know, maybe colleges find poor students who don't get in and sign them up. And I didn't even take a minute. I just signed. And the next thing I remember, I handed him his pen back, and he was ushering me out of the office, slapping me on the back and saying, Barry, you'll never regret this decision. And first I got home and I told my mom and dad, I'm going to Hartwick College. They said, what? You know, they'd never heard of it either. It was upstate New York. Okay, now it's a really pretty prestigious school, but then it was a small school. And I got to Hartwick, and of course, it's about trusting, which I didn't trust back then at age 18, but we are guided in this world. We're guided superbly. We're guided by this beautiful, loving, divine energy. Okay, so I got to Hartwick, and within a few months met Joyce and fell in love. And when Joyce heard the story, I didn't even think twice about this guy who signed me up. She said, Barry, have you thanked Hartwick or for sending that scout or whoever he was? I said, no, I didn't think about it. She said, you go right now and thank them. So I went to the administrative offices and I found the admissions place, and I said, I just want to thank whoever it was who signed me up. And this woman looked at me and like with this blank stare and said, what? And she went back, and pretty soon the dean of admissions came out and he said, what happened to you? And I told him the story, and he said, I hate to break this to you, but we have never, ever signed, enrolled, or scouted, or done anything like that. I said, well, who was that? He said, I have no idea. And to this day, a part of me still gets goosebumps, okay, when I think about this. Because he could have been an angel, and he probably was. And I didn't realize it, and Hartwick had no idea about anything about this. But somehow I had to be guided to be with a certain person. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we're these in our new book, A Couple of Miracles. It's really our memoir, and it's all about these kinds of miracles that we can't explain, and it's about the divine guidance. That's what it's about. That really moves us from A to B, and we don't even know that how much help there is, how the angels are always there. Okay, we don't know.
I always love hearing that story. It's so amazing. And I'm so grateful, of course. So we met, you know, we're 18, and, you know, it's just instant, deep, deep, deep connection, deep love. And we worked together in the school cafeteria, and one night we were talking. That was the thing. I felt like there was so much I couldn't I'd never been able to share with anyone, and the same with Barry. And so we just were sharing and going deeper and deeper. And this one night, Barry started telling me about his bar mitzvah. I'm like, Barry, you're Jewish? This is a Protestant school. People go to the chapel, and
The angel didn't say anything about that.
and yeah. And he thought I was Jewish because my maiden name was Wallenberg, German name.
I thought Goldberg, Steinberg, Wollenberg.
Get that microphone. So,
Sorry.
you know, like Barry remembers the the tie on that man. I remember he took my hands and he held them. He looked at me and he said, "You know, we can never get married. This is too big." I'm like, okay. But we're only 18, and we're having so much fun together. And so we continued to be together, and we just grew closer and closer and closer. Our parents were very, very worried, especially Barry's parents. And you would have to understand, this was New York. It was just 20 some years after World War II ended, and all the news about the Holocaust, the full horror of the whole thing was starting to come to the front, and Jewish children were being taught strictly to produce more Jewish children, that there had to, you know, to increase the population again. And it was a deep, deep thing. And that's why Barry said, we can never get married. And so we transferred schools to be away from each other. I went to school in New York City, and he went to school in Boston. But we still kept being together. I mean, the love was just so deep. And we tried to change each other. That wasn't going to happen. And our friend. So now, I mean, people that are Jewish marry people who aren't Jewish. It's not at all uncommon. But in New York at this time, 1960, what was it, 66?
64.
Yeah, it was unheard of, and nobody had heard of a Jewish person marrying someone who wasn't Jewish, and people, even our closest friends would say, you know, you're young, you can find someone else. It's, don't continue this. It's not going to go anywhere. Our parents, especially Barry's mom, it was such he was the firstborn Jewish male, and it was a big thing. His rabbi said, just like almost screamed at Barry, what are you even thinking about? You can't be with this woman. You cannot. She will never be one of us. So we did the only thing that we thought was the right thing, and that is that we broke up. And we didn't break up because of, we loved each other deeply. We broke up because nobody believed, not one person believed that we could make it as a couple. And I remember, this was way before cell phones and the internet, and we were really apart. There wasn't communication, and I was so miserable, just so completely miserable. And one night this was the Columbia University Medical Center, and our dorm was 23 flights up, and I went to the top. I wasn't going to jump, but I looked over all of Manhattan, and I just stayed there for the whole night praying that if there was any way that I could be with Barry, could we have a miracle? And I couldn't see it. Nobody could see it. How?
Let me just say that I was also incredibly miserable at Boston University. I was deeply missing Joyce, but my head was saying, I need to find a Jewish girl. So I kept trying to date Jewish girls. Nothing worked. Right. And then.
So this is an example of someone else being used to really help me. And I'm sure that you've had this happen to you, where you just can't see something, and someone else comes and gives you a message. So one of my friends' mother lived in Pennsylvania, and she was reading her Bible. This was the next morning after I'd spent the whole night up at the 23rd floor. And she was reading her Bible, and this little piece of paper fell out. And as she picked it up, she heard, "Take this to Joyce. She needs it." This sweet woman got in the bus and drove the 4-hour trip into New York City. Of course, she wanted to see her daughter too, but she handed me this piece of paper and she said, "This is for you." And it was, I think it's from the Bible, but above all else, love is most important. And that's all that was written on the paper. And I knew I loved Barry. And that had to be the most important. And I called you, finally got through to you, and I told you, and it was a year late. It was such a celebration.
The minute I heard Joyce's voice, she said, "Barry, we can make this work." And all this emotion came up, and I realized, yes, that's all I want. It's all I want.
So I hope that these stories of ours are just reminding you of ways that you've been really blessed, that people have really helped you in important times, or intuition that has come to you that has made such a big difference. And maybe you've had an experience like Barry had. We really believe that was an angel. I mean, young men don't just go around and do that kind of thing and get the personal information, which is impossible. So also, sometimes we're used to help other people. Sometimes even save their lives, which is what happened to Barry.
Yeah. I'll try this one. This is okay. We had this teacher. We've had a lot of incredible teachers, especially when we were young, and really needing help. Okay. One of these teachers was named Pearl Doris from Mount Shasta. Anybody heard about her or knew her? Nobody? This was some decades ago. You knew Pearl? Oh, I know. You know how it was in those days. Somebody would tell you something. Hey, there's this great teacher in Mount Shasta named Pearl. The next day we drove up to Mount Shasta you just got in your car and went, right? So we met her and ended up spending a lot of time with her and living like a whole summer in Mount Shasta. And our first daughter was 1? You were pregnant when this happened? No. But when this happened, we were actually living in Mount Shasta, and we were taking turns because one of us did the mundane parenting duties, which we didn't realize how deeply spiritual that was, to be with our child, right? While the other had the day to go up on Mount Shasta and have a spiritual experience. We got it really backwards. We really did. Okay. Anyway, it was my turn. I went up on the mountain, and I remember this day was so difficult. I mean, have you ever tried to meditate and you just can't? Your mind is just way too monkey mind, right? And I had this beautiful ledge high up on the mountain that any yogi would have been happy to sit there, and I just couldn't do it. Finally, I just got tired, and I took a nap, and I woke up from the nap, and I said, "Okay, that's it. I'm going back." And I walked down, climbed down, and I got to this beautiful meadow, Panther Meadow. Maybe some of you know this place. Beautiful little stream going through the meadow, and I was walking along, and there was a man lying down next to the stream. And the path would have gone maybe 20 feet away from him. And I thought, well, okay, the doctor and me looked and made sure he was breathing. Okay, I did that. But the other part of me said, he's probably taking a nap or meditating or whatever. And I was just going to go past, and I felt a prompting. Go sit next to him. Who listens to those promptings? Really? And I thought, forget that. Forget that. I'm going to go sit next to him. He's going to think I'm strange, or I'm picking up on him, or something weird, right? I'm invading his space, right? So I kept walking, but the prompting, and these promptings, you have to listen. Have you ever gotten a prompting that you didn't want to listen to, but you have to? And I finally said, here goes nothing. And I went and I sat 1 foot from his head on the grass. And I was like bracing myself for something that was bad. But instead, he opened his eyes and he looked into my eyes and he sat up. And right away, he said, you need to know I've been lying here planning my suicide. And I prayed one last time, if there is a God, show me, help me. And the moment later, I was sitting next to his head. And he sat up and he took my hands and he just started thanking me and thanking God for sending me. And I probably spent like 20 minutes sitting with him and just helping him so deeply. It's not like I needed to even do anything because he got the help just from me listening and sitting next to him. And within 20 minutes, we're just holding each other and crying and hugging and saying goodbye. And he said, now I don't need to kill myself. I know there's a God. I know that God is. I know God is. And tell me about how thankful I was that I actually listened. So my message to you is pay attention. And sometimes it's not so dramatic. Sometimes it's just a friend's name will pop in, or face will pop into your mind. Don't ignore it. Reach out, call the person, or text, or whatever. It can be that simple, and you could actually be saving a life just by listening. You got that? Okay? Raise your hand. I promise to listen to my intuition and my guidance. Come on, say it. I promise to listen to my intuition and my inner guidance. Thank you. Go ahead.
That's such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Wow. So and Barry has a beautiful song to to end our time with. We really want you all to know, and we want to know that we're constantly being cared for and loved so deeply, and trusting that love is there. So we had this experience 6 weeks ago. Barry's a really good rafting guide, and so we do a lot of river rafting. I mean, not a lot, but a couple weeks every summer. And we like to go to the Rogue River, the permitted part, the wild and scenic. So there's one rapid. Has anyone been on the Rogue? Yeah, there's one rapid called Blossom Bar, which is very dangerous, actually. And when we started rafting there 16 years ago, 7 people had lost their lives on this one rapid over the course of the summer. That's a lot. It's way too many. I mean, no one should die on a rapid, but it was very, very dangerous. And so there's always there's always this feeling when we come to this rapid. We remember that someone had died the day before we put on the river 16 years ago, and so there was a lot of tension, and there still is, because people make mistakes and they wrap their boats around the rocks, and it's I wish it wasn't there, that rapid, but anyway, it is. And it was the morning that we were going to be doing that, and these rangers came up, and they're like, there's high water this year, and it's dangerous, and be careful. We want you to be careful. And we're like, okay. And so it's just Barry and I in our little 12-foot raft. But we also we have 3 golden retrievers, and those are big. They're big dogs. They're in the boat with us, and they had fallen out of the boat, each one several times on the trip already, and that would have been, they could have died easily if they fell off at that rapid. So Barry, of course, he was in charge of the boat, getting us through safely, and I was in charge of holding myself onto the boat and these 3 dogs. And that's hard.
But I'm really careful to tell Joyce, if the dogs fall out, let them go. Hold on to the boat. They can swim. They have life jackets. They're okay.
I know. But so usually on this rapid, there's a little eddy, and you can kind of collect yourself and say a prayer. But there wasn't any, because the river was moving so fast. So before I knew it, Barry's right there, and it's really steep going into this big rock, and I at first I just felt absolute terror, and then this feeling, this voice, and this is the most important voice for all of us. I'm here with you all the time. And that's not just for me, it's for all of us. This presence of love is here for us all the time. And once I heard that and felt that, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And of course we made it through safely. The dogs didn't move, and we were all safe. But I want you to close your eyes and just to feel that this presence of love is here with us all the time. I'm here with you all the time. So let's keep our eyes closed as Barry sings this, and you might want to imagine like an angel holding you, a beautiful presence of light, or just this beautiful love surrounding you and promising you that you are being held, you are being loved. You are not ever going to be abandoned from this love.
So just feel that for a moment, this divine presence. The angels, the great masters, your higher self, the God within you. Always here, always near. Never are we alone. Never are we abandoned. Take a breath, breathe that in. Okay, thank you. You can open your eyes. Thank you. So we have some of our new book, and we would love to move them along, okay? And I guarantee that you will really enjoy it. It's a really exciting read sometimes, too. Okay, but also we do a 10 to 15 minute inspirational video every week and send it out Sunday morning at 8 a.m. You're welcome to sign up for that. It's free. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, Cynthia.